Joanna Dennehy, Britain's sadistic serial killer. Today we want to tell you about the UK crime story of Joanna Dennehy, Britain's sadistic serial killer. What did you know about Joanna Dennehy? If you've seen our video about the 4 UK women jailed for life without parole, you must have heard about the Peterborough Ditch Murderer. We didn't have all the time in the video to dig deeper into Joanna's criminal activities. Within 10 days in March 2013, precisely between the 19th and 29th, she carried out the scariest serial killing due to her lack of range of human emotion. This video, devoted exclusively to the story behind the crimes known as Peterborough Ditch Murders, will dissect her background and give you a general impression of her. About Joanna Dennehy. Brief background. The baby-faced angel who turned a serial killer, according to her ex-boyfriend, was born in 1982. She was raised near St Albans, Hertfordshire, and grew up living with Kelvin, her father, Kathleen, her mother, and Maria, her sister. By all available accounts, her upbringing was stable and loving. In fact, her academic records show that throughout her junior years, she did well at school. If she had kept it up in that trajectory, she would have no reason to venture into crime. However, as she entered her teenage years, Joanna began experimenting with drinks and drugs. She also started to hang out with petty criminals. The matter took a sharp turn when she was 15. She left home and began dating 20-year-old John Trina. The relationship subsequently produced 2 children. In the meantime, she developed or manifested a personality disorder, becoming increasingly obsessed with her desires and needs, placing them above everyone's and everything else, including the needs of the children. Thus, as her babies grew, Trina, the father, and others around the family noticed Joanna's increasing narcissism. The whole thing was complicated when she became an alcoholic and a drug addict. She and Trina would often argue, altercate, and brawl. Joanna was self-harming, severally cutting her stomach in fits of anger using razor blades and knives. Venturing into crime. What do you expect to hear next about someone given to alcohol and drugs and with all that attitude? The recipes for crime were already fully in place, so it wasn't surprising that Joanna became a petty criminal who had served time in a juvenile detention facility following her conviction for burglary. She was quite manipulative and, as seen in her later life, showed no remorse for her actions. She completely lacks empathy. Sick and tired of the violence and abuse, Trina separated from her, taking the children with him. Left alone and homeless, Joanna took to stealing and other petty crimes. She was arrested in 2012 and convicted of theft. During her time in prison, she underwent psychological testing and was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. The diagnosis identified some underlying psychopathic traits such as rage, impulsivity, violence, and anger. To regulate her moods, she was placed on prescriptive medications. The following year, Joanna met 48-year-old Kelvin in Peterborough. Kelvin rented out cheap rooms mainly to vulnerable people. He began paying rent for Joanna and the pair subsequently entered a sexual relationship. She acted as Lee's paid enforcer, threatening and intimidating people into paying their dues in full. With support from Kelvin and the relationship, Joanna felt her life was more stable under new circumstances than it used to be for a long time. As she felt she was now in control of her emotions and actions, she stopped taking her antipsychotic medication altogether. Her 10-day murder spree. Joanna Dennehy was profiled as the Peterborough Ditch Murderer behind a series of 3 murders committed in the UK in March 2013. They all died from stab wounds. Also, the bodies of the 3 men were all discovered dumped in ditches outside the town of Peterborough. But who were the victims of the crimes that occurred between the 19th and 29th of March 2013? Lucas Slabozewski. Joanna Dennehy began her vicious murder spree with 31-year-old Lucas Slabozewski, whom she met in Peterborough just days before killing him. Lucas was one of the tenants of Kelvin. After drinking together, Joanna took Lucas to another one of Kelvin's houses. Newspapers reported that Lucas told his friends that he was going on a date with a lady he thought was his new girlfriend. At the house, Joanna blindfolded him and stabbed him in the heart. She stored his remains in a dumpster and plotted to take her next victim. John Chapman. 10 days after killing Lucas Slabozewski, Joanna murdered another one of her housemates, John Chapman. The 56-year-old victim was murdered in the same manner as Lucas. Lucas Slabozewski and John Chapman were both found on the 3rd of April near Thorney, in a dyke on the bleak outskirts of Peterborough with stab wounds. The only difference was that John Chapman was stabbed in the neck and chest. Kevin Lee. On the 29th of March, Joanna killed Kevin Lee, a property developer and her landlord who was also doubled as her boyfriend. A section of the media reported that the 48-year-old man with whom she was having an affair was convinced by her to wear a black sequin before she killed him. The reason for killing her boyfriend, who had earlier been responsible for her upkeep and emotional stability, remains a mystery. It was also reported by another section of the media that Mr. Lee had served Joanna Dennehy with an eviction notice. He wanted her to vacate his property to allow him to renovate it. However, Kevin Lee was found dead on the 30th of March with stab wounds to the chest in a ditch in Newborough, Cambridgeshire. To further humiliate him, he was found in a sexually explicit position. What drove her to kill? It was said that Joanna had no real motivation for killing. She killed just because she liked how it felt. However, a deeper look at her life and feelings could give us a clue into why she killed. Remember that after finding an amorous relationship with Kevin Lee, she felt stable and stopped taking the prescriptive medication for her psychotic condition. Don't forget also that she had no range of human feelings and needed to control her mood. Could it be that her sudden withdrawal from the medication without medical supervision made killing appealing to her? We're not experts in such matters. Another school of thought harps on Joanna Dennehy's likely hatred for men and a troubled teen life. After eloping with John Trina at age 16, who got her pregnant at 17, she became so furious as she didn't want children. She developed loathsome feelings for men when John left her to save the children from the toxic environment created by drugs and drinking. In addition, she was cheating on John, self-harmed, and appeared to be a real threat to his family. So when the relationship ended, she resorted to prostitution to fund her addiction. That could also have increased her hatred for men. She said men were her target because she was a mother and wanted to spare other women, especially those with a child. 2 other partners in crime. Gary Stretch Richards and Leslie Layton were Joanna Dennehy's accomplices at some point. When she wanted to dispose of the bodies of both men, they helped her transport and dump them in dishes. They were responsible for the further humiliation of Kevin's dead body. On their way back from dumping the last 2 victims, the trio drove to the town of Hereford to find more people for Dennehy to murder. Joanna was reported by the BBC as telling Gary, "I want my fun. I need you to get my fun." They came across John Rogers and Robin Bereza. The 2 men were walking their dogs before Joanna stabbed Robin in the chest and then stabbed John Rogers over 40 times. Thanks to quick medical intervention, both men survived and could identify her during a trial. Her goal was to murder at least 9 men. Arrested despite attempting to escape. 2 days after she murdered Kevin, his family reported him missing. His body was discovered where Joanna left him. Joanna was identified as a person of interest in the case, but she ran along with Richards when they attempted to question her. She was arrested on April 2nd, 2013, 2 days after being tracked down. She was amused by her arrest and trial as she had been laughing in custody and while being booked. She even joked and flirted with the male police officer processing her. In November 2013, she pleaded guilty to all murders and attempted murders and was sentenced to life in prison with a recommendation that she should never be released. The trial judge described her actions as premeditated. What do you now think about Joanna Dennehy, Britain's sadistic serial killer? Have you got a different impression? Your opinion on this matters to us. Please, let's have your comments. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.